Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a disassembly video for you on this little guy right here. This is the Kansept knives. I believe it's called the Accipiter, for whatever reason, which I don't actually even know what that means. I feel like I should, but I guess I need to just accept that I don't. Okay, yeah, mini Accipiter. This is the Kansept knives mini Accipiter. So, first off, a couple of quick things to highlight. We are very, very slightly off center. We're favoring the clip side here. I'm wondering, though, looking carefully at the blade, it almost looks like the blade grind might be a little bit off, or that the blade might be a little warped. Either way, but that's a pre-existing condition, so to speak. Also, the detent on this guy is a little on the hard side. And so I'm sort of hoping that by putting a little lubrication in there, I'm going to lighten that up. And then I also, by the way, feel like this needs a little bit of lubrication just generally. It feels like it could be very smooth, but it's a little gritty in there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this apart. I am going to try... How am I going to do this? So my concerns are twofold here. One is that I don't want to scratch up the Damascus here because this is a titanium Damascus on there, which I can go ahead and, yeah, if I hit this with a polishing cloth, you see, oh yeah, that looks nice. But I also, very often, the knife should be designed, in my estimation, I guess I'll come in through the top here. And just be a little bit more careful. He says dangerously. Yeah, it looks like I'm doing the right thing here, because this is not free spinning. So then assuming that the back side there is non-free spinning, this looks like the way I'm going to have to do it. And then on the back here, we've got these two guys here, which are, looks like T6. Yeah. Okay, pop that out. Just notice the back spacer is colored as well. That's a nice little detail. And that one was loose. Okay, well, there we go. Sometimes a knife really wants to be taken apart. So what I'm seeing here is actually exactly what I'd feared. This is a little bit, well, it needs a little loving. It looks like the bearing area is lubricated, but the detent ball path is not. And so, hopefully, that means that when I lube that area, we're going to get a little bit more in the way of a little reduced detent, actually, as well as potentially a bit of smoother action. So, great. This knife is the mini version of the Accipiter. The full-size Accipiter is... oh, come on. It's like... oh, here. This is the full-size version. Yeah, and so we can see here, this is just the smaller one, as many might imply. Can I push this pivot out? No, this appears to be fixed in place. Yeah, close enough. All right, luckily, I'll just come in here. I'll use a watch spring bar tool. And by the way, if you're curious about any of the tools I'm using for this or any of my other disassemblies, go to nickshabazz.com/tools, and you'll see a full description. What's rattling in there? Looks like, oh, the washer. They have a stainless steel washer here, or at least I'm assuming that's stainless steel, which is always a beautiful thing. One thing I have to say, so the Kansept is it's a relatively new company, founded by, among other people, Kim Ning, who was a pretty well-known designer who worked for Kaiser. It's a Chinese company, but one thing that I will say is that we're getting a little bit spoiled because a lot of the things that, we're kind of like, whoa, that's crazy, high-end features, like 2 or 3 years ago even, when I was getting started in the game, are now just sort of de rigueur, right? They're constantly there. So what I'm seeing here are things like ceramic lock bar. Ceramic lock ball, or detent ball, that is. A lock face insert. And so we see here, over travel stop. We see stainless steel bearing races, which will avoid the titanium getting depressed. Not like 2020, everybody's depressed, but just depressed in terms of like a little compression dots in there, making for a less smooth action. Ceramic ball bearings. All of these things are not like, oh my God, we need this. It's not the case, for instance, that, without this, the knife is junk. or anything like that. Absolutely not. A lot of these things are just little subtle quality of life features, but they are now pretty much universally present, at least in terms of your mid to high-end pieces. And given Kansept seems to be putting more effort into their fit and finish, and frankly, their, oh, it's a Kim Ning design. See, right there, Kim Ning. Anyways, who's rapidly becoming a designer of major note, right? But anyways, I'm kind of pleased to see so much of the high end trickling down, so to speak. And not that this is a low end piece, but just like everywhere, it really feels like some of these things that used to be, oh, wow, that's exceptional, really well done, are now sort of just the default. And I love that. We are in a very... Look, in this one particular regard, this is a beautiful time to be alive. Yeah, I'm happy about that. And Kansept, of course, deserves a little bit of recognition, so to speak, for going that route. One thing that actually I just noticed as I'm looking at this guy is the very tiny font saying S35VN right there. That is actually one of the areas where I'm a little surprised, where this almost feels a little bit behind the times. Do not get me wrong. I am not turning up my nose at S35VN. That remains a really good steel, right? I am a big fan of S35. And in fact, for a lot of people and for a lot of lives, it is potentially even viewable as better than like the M390 family, etc. Just because it's going to be a little easier to maintain for a lot of folks. But at the same time, I was thinking Damascus. I figured they'd go that route. But no, look. Again, no major beef there. We are pretty much ready to put this guy back together, so I'm going to go ahead and do so. I'm going to use a little bit of a blue thread locker here on these back screw. Well, on all of these screws. Again, we got T6 here. Hey, good. I actually washed the paint off. I have been... one of the things I've been doing for the last, and welcome to Nick Shabazz rants about things that aren't the Kansept, Accipiter Mini. But anyways, one of the things I've been doing for the last little while here has been actually building lighting fixtures. I've been, installing not track lighting, but, basically a place for strip lights to live on the wall that looks reasonably attractive and whatnot in my home here. Because, well, now I have a home, so I can drill into walls. Anyways, sorry, flex. But what I wanted to, but I've been painting them using some black stain, because it's, wood, right? And so my hands have been blackened by that for a few days now. It's good to see they are coming back to their normal hue, I suppose. Okay, is this... Okay, that's in, good. That's in, good. Now I just need to get the pivot in place. May have over-tightened those back screws. We'll see once we get the pivot in there. We might have to loosen those to get everything centered back up, but I wanted to get them in at the very least. Okay, and we tighten. All right, we are still very slightly favoring show side or clip side, and I have over-tightened the pivot pretty considerably. Did I not oil the detent ball track? I did not. After all that freaking storm and drang about the freaking detent ball. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use this little thing of 10-weight nano oil. I'm going to go in, and you see that detent ball right in there? Yeah, actually, let me see if I can zoom in and show you how I'm doing this here. My goal here, and it's harder to do this in 2 dimensions on a camera, but my goal is just to hit that detent ball precisely with a drop of lubrication, figuring that will then place the lubrication across the detent ball, as well as... Oh, wow, that's better. Yeah, that was very crucial. Okay, good. Good. Well, that was one of those things where I felt like I did a little good in the world, right? What we now have is a knife that is running with less detent, which is good. And my suspicion that it was because that detent ball path was bone dry seems to have borne itself out. The centering is actually still a little off, although now it's favoring the show side. Let me loosen up these back screws here, now that the pivot is properly adjusted, and then I'm going to retighten them. now we are roughly dead on. Tighten. Tighten. I think... Let's see if it stays that way. No play. We are pretty much dead on. Maybe very slightly favoring show, but to the extent where I don't care. The tent is still a little harder than I might like to see on a front flipper. This is one of the things that oftentimes companies that haven't done a lot of front flippers get wrong, is they'll tune the detent identically to their non-front flippy counterparts. So as a result, this takes a little bit more loving. Well, force, I suppose. Loving is not equal to force, people. Anyways, I digress. It takes a little bit more gronk to get that guy fully deployed, but nonetheless, the smoothness on this is now very good. We are running just beautifully, which is good, and it'll wear in a little bit over time. But, yeah, running much smoother. The centering... Are we drifting towards show? Like I said, I think I'm splitting hairs here. We seem to be in good shape. And we are roughly, we're all set here. So I'm duly impressed there. I'm actually going to go ahead, as I'm thinking about it here, and pop apart the full-size Accipiter here. This guy seems to have a free spinning pivot. What the heck, bro? What the heck? Okay. So then I grab... It's not ideal. Guys, you had more room. All right, go ahead and grab this. I'm having to restrain myself from doing the nickshabazz.com/tools shout out just because I already did one this video. This is needing a little... It's pretty thread locked in there or over tightened. Looks like we've got ourselves a pivot collar, which is always a nice thing. It's a nice little detail and is something people can customize pretty straightforwardly. What are these? Oh, no, that's T6 still. For some reason, it looked bigger. Oh, wow, look at that lanyard hole. That's kind of nice. These literally just came to my P.O. box today. And by the way, for full disclosure, this guy both of these came to me directly from Kansept Knives. Basically, they asked me which of their recent ones I was interested in looking at, and this set was definitely one I was curious about. So, there we go. Okay, actually, the construction on this is... this one they lubricated. Actually, it looks like Nick Shabazz lubricated this one. Oof. Anyways, how dare they? It's my trademark. Intellectual property. Anyways, I digress. So we are going to go on ahead and pop this open. The construction looks relatively similar in a lot of ways. I mean, still some of the quality of life features I was just talking about, which I appreciate. Looks like the pivot on this guy, however, is not, or is free spinning. Oh, sorry, hit the camera with my Batman mask there. Which, again, is a sentence that if I had to predict its frequency in my life... even 10 years ago, would have been much, much lower than I expected, or higher than I expected. Anyways, yeah, but otherwise seems to be about the same. Interesting that the micarta here appears to, like the tie cutout for the stop pins goes all the way through. No harm, I suppose. What's this? Oh, that's the not the pivot, the freaking lanyard holder, which is a nice looking one, by the way. Also, Kim Ning. If one of these was made by Kim Ning and the other one wasn't, I'd be a little weirded out. Because, dude, yeah. So, yeah. One thing that's kind of funny. Okay, now that we've talked about the knife, it's rant time. One thing that's kind of funny to me is that I am reasonably well known as a champion of some notion of intellectual property and or maybe artistic integrity in the knife world. Namely, I'm not a big fan of clones. I'm not a big fan of closely borrowed designs, etc. And I feel like that's pretty ugly, and we as a community shouldn't support the makers who do that. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why I am perfectly fine reviewing like Kansept, whereas a lot of the smaller, relatively new Chinese brands don't pass muster is because Kansept is using all original designs. And in fact, they're working a great deal with pretty well-known designers and licensing designs kind of out of the gate, which is an approach I really appreciate. And so, but it's funny to me that I go that I've taken these stances on the channel, because in the rest of my life, I'm not a particularly strong believer in intellectual property, right? Like software patents and that kind of thing drive me crazy. I'm very much an information should be free sort of guy, which is, by the way, why I'm posting on YouTube, and why, even though I have a Patreon, all of my videos go live for everybody. It's just sometimes patrons see them sooner. It'd be very easy to paywall videos, but anyways, I'm generally speaking not so interested in the idea of intellectual property, but I am very much interested in the idea of artistic uniqueness, right? I think it's not a good idea to rip other people off, etc. And so, I've always found that dichotomy interesting. But I think there's sort of a difference, too, between somebody, having the right to something that's truly unique that they've done, and then somebody abusing a system to, frankly, that and trolling and that kind of thing come to mind, which seems to be much more prevalent in some of the other areas. I know that this is a vastly political topic, and I am slightly afraid that the comments are going to be full of discussion of it, but at the same time, that's kind of where I land. Anyways, I digress. By the way, open access journals. I'm a scientist, and one of the most important battles we are fighting right now in the sciences is the battle for open access. There is a great documentary about this. I believe it's called Paywall the Movie. But it's something along those lines that talks about exactly why academic publishing and scientific publishing too, presuming they're different things, is just so messed up right now, and what we can do to stop it. And why this is a major problem for everybody, not just for scientists like me. Anyways, that's a battle I feel very passionate about. But that's not at all about this knife, which we've put back together with a minimum of any kind of difficulty, right? I'm going to go ahead and pop it open here. Whoa. Hear that? There was some little piece of something grit in there. Seems to have disappeared now. This one is much less smooth than the small one, oddly enough. I don't know what that's about. Do I have my pivot over tightened here is a big question. Also, the detent on this one is a little harder, maybe than I'd like to see it. Okay, loosened up a little bit. That's nice. Again, very slightly off center. Let's go ahead and loosen up these back parts now that I got everything dialed in, and see whether that makes any difference for me. I have no idea why I just chose to make that rant, but here we are. There's not that much interesting inside this knife, so suppose there it is. Okay, beautiful. So, all right, that is the Accipiter here. I am, first impressions-wise, I will give you my feelings as soon as I get this out of the way. I'm actually reasonably impressed with these. The design on these is quite nice. I think it's an attractive piece, and in many ways it feels like a nice follow-up, sort of a different version of this little guy, which I've also been pretty impressed with. This is the Kim Ning shot. Kim Ning seems to be developing a design language. Well, he's had one for a while, but he's really working and honing his design language, and I appreciate that. The little guy here, as you can imagine, given my particular set of biases, is pretty impressive to me. I definitely do appreciate that. The clip works well. I would like to see a little bit of inlay work on the show side here. Having the clip is nice, but it's one of those things where you definitely feel the lack of inlay on the other side. The same thing, by the way, with the shot here. But the little Accipiter here is quite nice. Ergonomically speaking, it works well. You can choke up, choke back, whatever, no problem. The clip's a little bit odd spotty in the hand, and it's a little, the Damascus is a little bit slippery. Let's be real here. The Damascus, as always, is a, it's for the it's for the eye, not the hand. I'm going to go ahead. I'm just hitting this guy with a little bit of, actually, a glasses cleaner, which I've noticed does a really nice job of removing the oil and making that pattern just pop. Same thing here. like, oh yeah, that's pretty nice right there. And that's not like something that's just inlaid in there or something like that. It's not just a printed thing. In fact, if we look at the very edge of this, we see that the pattern actually persists all the way down into there. That's just 2 grades of titanium molded together there. Very thin Damascus inlay, as we see here, but nonetheless pretty attractive. And the clip on this, by the way, has a really nice looking piece of Damascus. That's some good stuff right there. Anyways, so I like the little one a lot. The big one here, I would kind of like to see a little bit more lever at the top there, and I'd like to see the detent dialed back a little bit, and frankly, it's a big one, right? This is, both of these guys are relatively, well, I'm sorry, the big guy is relatively large. If we put this guy next to the Spyderco Delica, see, little one's right in delicate territory. Big one's pretty reasonably big. Here it is against the PM2. We get more blade length than a PM2 out of this guy. So yeah, it's a big one. But nonetheless, those are my first impressions. Largely positive. Kind of wish that the detent was dialed back a little bit, and definitely maybe this tab could have been a little bit longer. And maybe, I don't know. It's just part of it, I imagine, is just finding the right method to actuate it. But yeah, nonetheless. There you go. I hope this has been acceptable to you. Did I just do the size comparison while zoomed in? You know, have you ever wondered what your life would be like if you watched a YouTube channel about pocket knives that wasn't run by an idiot? I've often wondered that too. But yeah, there we go. That's a little bit more reasonable. And then here it is against the shot, which is another Kim Ning thing. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.